In this podcast, I'm going to show you how to reverse engineer a database that might be populating a website. So the website I've chosen is on LDS.org and it's the temple list. And so we know most likely that this page is generated from a database in the background. And so my task is to look at this website, and you don't have to do a complete reverse engineer. 2 to 5 tables is probably sufficient just to show that you have an idea how these data structures might look and how they might interact. So I can see that I have name, location, and when the temple was dedicated. I also have this whether or not they're active, their status, and I can filter by location and I can filter by name. So at first glance, I'm thinking there's two main tables or entities that we need. One for the temple and one for location. And then somehow there's some status information in here too. So I'll open up my SQL Workbench and go ahead and start it. I want to do file and then a new model. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong thing there. New model, and I'll double click on add a diagram. So now I have a space where I can create my model. So I want a table for the temple. So I click on the table icon and then click in white space. I can right click on that table and say edit table. I'm going to call this the temples table. And as we've talked about in the past, we usually make the first row or first column an auto incrementing surrogate primary key. So I'll call this temple ID. I'll say it's a primary key, cannot be null, it needs to be unique, and it's auto increment. The second column will be the temple name, and varchar 45 is good, and it also cannot be null, and it must be unique. Okay. Now, another table that I need is a location. And so let me create a table for location. I'll paste that over here. And let me edit that table. And since we made the other table plural name, we'll do the same with this one. Locations. I'll do the same thing. I'll make a surrogate auto-incrementing primary key, location underscore ID. Okay. And then what we have is we have a, in the location, looks like it's a combination of, in some cases, like the United States, it's given us the country, it's given us the state, and looks like, well, in some cases, it's not the city name. So like, for example, the Chesapeake, Virginia mission, that's not a city. So we have to think a little bit about how we want to break down this information. I'm going to say that we want a country. We know we want a country. Varchar 45 is good. And if I want to have them choose from a list of countries, I would need to have a lookup table. So I'm going to create another, I'm going to actually remove that. I'm going to create another table, put it on here, and I'm going to call this the country table, or countries, since I've made the other tables plural. Make this a country ID. Make it primary key must be, cannot be null, must be unique, auto increment. And I'll call this the country name. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to create these relationships between them. Let me go back to my location table because I want to actually delete this column. So temples have locations. So I'm going to go ahead and create a one-to-many relationship, meaning one location could be assigned to many temples. So let's look here. I'll choose the non-identifying one-to-many relationship. So we click the many first, and then the one, and it automatically adds a column that is a foreign key to the primary key on the location table. Okay. Then what I need to do is there's a relationship between countries and locations. One country can be assigned to many locations. So again, I'll select the one-to-many. You click the many once. Okay, one location can be assigned, I'm sorry, one country can be assigned to many locations. So I'll click locations first, then countries, and I have a foreign key relationship between countries and locations. Let me go back and look, what else do I need? Well, there's the date it was dedicated and the status of the temple. So let's edit the temple table again and add a column for status. Now, here's another situation where I might just want to choose from a list of statuses. So I'm going to make that, I'm going to put that in a different table. And then the dedicated. So I want a dedicated field on the temples table. So I'll say dedication underscore date. And I'm going to make that not a varchar, but rather a date field. And I'm going to say it has to be required, okay, meaning it cannot be left null. All right, so I want to create a little status table that you could choose from when you're entering in the temple data. So I'll click on place a table. I'll edit that table, and I'm going to call this table status codes. So column name, status code underscore ID. Make it a primary key again. And then I'll call this the code description. And so what that allows me to do, it allows me to create a list of codes that when somebody's entering temple information, they can choose from. So if they have to change the status, they just select from the list. So I need to create, again, a one-to-many relationship between status codes and temples. So I click on the non-identifying one-to-many. One status code could be assigned to many temples. So I'll click on temples first because it's the many status codes. And you can see that it added status codes to temples. So that is the basics of the assignment, is to look at a website and then try to imagine what might the database that's running this website look like. Design it in the ERD, create the entities and the foreign relationships, and then discuss what they mean.